Deep into one of the most important safety standards in the entire Indian civil industry, IS 4912. Now, this isn't just some boring document. Think of it as the ultimate rulebook that prevents falls from height, which, as you know, is a leading cause of serious injury on our construction sites. We're going to translate all that technical jargon about floor openings, railings, and toe boards into a super clear, visual guide that you can literally take and apply on your project today. Let's get right into it. But before we start talking about clauses and measurements, let's get one thing crystal clear. A standard like this isn't about red tape or filling out forms. It's a framework that's been built to stop life-altering and sometimes fatal accidents. Every single rule we're going to cover exists for a reason. It's tied to a real-world hazard. So getting this right isn't just about passing an audit. It's about making absolutely sure that every single person on your team gets to go home safe at the end of the day. And hey, for those of you who've been in the game for a while and think you know IS 4912 inside and out, you're definitely going to want to stick around. We're not just covering the old stuff. We are going to zoom in on a critical 2022 amendment that completely changes a key construction detail. It's a small change with a huge impact on safety, and you absolutely need to know about it. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the big picture, the scope of the standard, just so we're all on the same page about what it covers. Then we'll get really precise with the language, because in safety, the little details are everything. After that, we'll jump into the practical, on-the-ground stuff for floors, walls, and platforms. And we'll wrap it all up with the hard numbers, the construction specs you can't ignore, including that massive 2022 update. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the standard and its scope. Before we get into all the nitty-gritty details, we really need to understand what this standard is trying to do and how far its reach goes. What's it for and why is it so comprehensive? At its heart, the goal is incredibly simple. Stop people and materials from falling. That's it. And it covers pretty much everything you can think of, from little holes for types to huge openings for elevators, plus all your stairs and catwalks. But here's the part that a lot of people miss. See that last point? This standard isn't just for when the building is going up. Its rules apply to the finished building too. That means the safety features you install now might need to last for the building's entire life. So this is just as important for facility managers as it is for site engineers. All right, let's talk definitions. Now, I know this can seem a bit like being back in school, but trust me, in safety standards, words have very specific, very important meanings. Knowing the exact difference between a hole and an opening is what tells you what kind of protection you're legally required to have. First up, we have a floor hole. Think of this as the smaller, but still serious, hazard. The standard says it's any opening that's less than 30 centimeters, but bigger than 2.5. So no, a person can't fall through it. But a wrench, a phone, a piece of rebar? Absolutely. And that can be just as deadly for the person working on the floor below. Now compare that to a floor opening. This is the big one. This is a major league hazard. If an opening is 30 centimeters or more across its smallest part, it's officially an opening. Why 30 centimeters? Well, because that's the magic number where a person can fall through. And as you can imagine, the safety rules for these are way, way stricter because the consequences are catastrophic. So this slide just lays it out perfectly. Under 30 centimeters, it's a floor hole. We're worried about dropping things on someone's head. But the second it hits 30 centimeters, it becomes a floor opening, and now we're worried about a person falling through. It's the difference between a small pipe sleeve and a giant cutout for a staircase. The entire safety plan hinges on that one measurement. And we see the same kind of logic for walls, but here we have to think about two dimensions. A wall hole is anything with a height of less than 75 centimeters. But for it to be a high-risk wall opening, it has to meet two conditions. The height has to be at least 75 centimeters, and the width has to be at least 45 centimeters. If it hits both of those marks, boom, it's officially a serious fall hazard that needs proper guarding. Okay, so we've got the language down. Now for the fun part. How do we actually guard these things on site? This section is all about the real-world application of these rules. The standard gets really specific because every type of opening has its own unique risk. For a simple stairway, you need a railing on all the open sides. Makes sense. For a ladderway, though, the risk of kicking a tool down is higher, so you need the railing plus a toe board. For things like hatchways or manholes that get used a lot, you can either have a super strong cover, or if it's open for work, it has to be completely surrounded by removable railings. The theme here is pretty clear. No unguarded openings, ever. Now, this is a great question because every site supervisor has run into this. You've got, say, a hatch to a basement, but it's smack in the middle of a main hallway. You can't just put a permanent railing there. It would block everything. So what's the solution? And here is the brilliant, elegant answer right from the standard itself. You use a heavy-duty hinged cover that can take the weight of traffic. But here's the genius part. The railings are attached to the cover. The moment you lift the cover, the railings automatically swing up into a safe, locked position. It's instant, foolproof protection that doesn't get in the way or rely on someone remembering to set up a temporary barrier. All right, section 4, let's talk about walls. When it comes to wall openings, everything, and I mean everything, comes down to one single critical number that tells you what you need to do, and that is the 120 centimeter rule. This number is your trigger, 120 centimeters. That's 1.2 meters. If the drop from a wall opening down to the next level is more than that, a whole set of guarding rules immediately kicks in. It's a clear line in the sand. Below that, the risk is lower. Above it, you've got to take serious action. So here's the key takeaway. It's not just one thing, it's a whole safety system. First, you need that main barrier, a rail or a fence to stop a person from falling out. Second, you add a tow board if there's anyone below you to stop materials from falling on them. Third, and this is the one people often forget, you have to install grab handles on both sides to give someone a secure hold. And finally, that little 2.5 centimeter sill. It seems tiny, but it's an amazing last line of defense to stop a loose bolt from rolling off the edge. Okay, let's keep building on this. Now we're going to move up and look at how to protect people on open-sided floors, platforms, and the stairs that get them there. The main ideas are the same, but the way we apply them is a little different. And there it is again, 120 centimeters. See? The rule is consistent. If you are on a platform, a catwalk, any open-sided floor, and the drop is 1.2 meters or more, you have to have a guardrail on all the open sides. No exceptions. This goes for scaffolds, mezzanines, you name it. If there's a drop, there has to be a rail. And the standard doesn't stop there. A railing stops a person, sure, but a tow board stops a tool. And you must add a tow board if one of three things is true. People can walk underneath you, there's moving machinery below, or if falling materials could cause any kind of problem. Let's be honest, on pretty much any busy construction site, at least one of those is always true. Okay, what about getting from one level to another? Every site is full of stairs, both temporary and permanent. So when do they actually need railings? The rules are super specific. The rule kicks in as soon as a staircase has 4 or more risers, and this table just lays it all out with simple logic. If you have a narrow stairway, under 150 centimeters, and it's boxed in by walls, you just need one handrail for support. If one side is open, that open side now needs a full-on stair railing to stop a fall. If both sides are open, both sides need a railing. And then for wider stairs, you need railings on the open sides and handrails on the closed sides. It all just makes perfect sense. We've covered the what and the where, so now let's get down to the how. This is our last section, and it's all about the hard numbers, the specific, non-negotiable details that make sure all these safety systems will actually do their job when you need them most. This right here is probably the most important performance spec in the entire standard. A guardrail isn't just for looks. It has to be strong enough to take a hit of at least 90 kilograms, that's about 200 pounds, pushed from any direction at any point. That's not a random number. It's designed to simulate the force of a full-grown adult stumbling and crashing into it. That railing cannot fail. And here are the other critical numbers to burn into your memory. A standard guardrail needs to be 90 centimeters high to hit an average person around their center of gravity and stop them from toppling over. For stairs, it's a bit lower, 75 to 85 centimeters, to make it a more comfortable height to grab. Tow boards have to be at least 15 centimeters high to stop most tools. And finally, that handrail needs 7.5 centimeters of space from the wall so you can actually get your whole hand around it in a hurry without smashing your knuckles. This chart gives you a great visual of those height rules. You can see that standard platform railing is up there at a solid 90 centimeters, but the stair railing sits in that slightly lower sweet spot. And that's totally on purpose. It's an ergonomic thing designed to match the angle you're on when you're walking up or down stairs. Okay, we've made it. It's time for the big reveal, the critical update I told you about at the beginning. Back in 2022, a small but incredibly significant change was made to IS 4912. It's about how we build our railings, and this is it. This is the update you have to know. For decades, the old standard allowed a maximum gap of 20 centimeters between the bars of a guardrail. Well, the 2022 amendment came in and slashed that number in half. The new maximum gap is now just 100 millimeters. That's 10 centimeters. This is a massive improvement. It makes the gap so small that it's nearly impossible for a person to slip through. So let me be clear. If your site is still making railings to the old 20-centimeter spec, you are not compliant with the current standard. So, we've walked through the ins and outs of IS 4912, from the basic definitions right up to the latest change. Knowing the rules is step one, of course. But the real goal here isn't just to tick a box on a form. So, I'll leave you with this question. Now that you have the technical knowledge, how do you build a site culture where safety isn't just a rule to be followed, but it's an instinct? How do we go from just complying to proactively preventing accidents before they ever happen? That's the real challenge.